2021-2022 medium-term budget alongside the Finance Bill 2021 to Parliament for consideration. Standing out was the 3.6 trillion shilling budget proposition, the highest so far for the country has ever had. What are the nitty-gritties of these proposals? KTN's Noah Kipkemboi comes through the Finance Bill.
Treasury is positive that 3.632 trillion shillings, our biggest budget thus far, will be sufficient in stimulating economic recovery and responding to the health challenges the COVID-19 pandemic has caused.
It's a concern because the higher our expenditure is, and revenues are not keeping pace, that suggests that even though the government has said plenty of times that we're going to do austerity measures, we're going to cut expenditure, the reality is that's not actually happening. And that is putting a lot of stress on the country economically, I feel.
The proposal has allocated 135.3 billion shillings on the President's Big Four agenda, covering universal healthcare, food and nutrition, manufacturing and affordable housing.
Concern with all the infrastructure spend is that are we getting value for money in what we do? Is it, during the spend of the infrastructure, whilst it's going up, there is very little trickle down into the economy because your contractors from somewhere outside, the funding is from somewhere outside, sometimes even the labor is from somewhere outside. So who is benefiting? Kenyans are not necessarily benefiting today from that infrastructure. Once it is in place, it'll make a big difference.
To help with the economic recovery from the devastating impact of the pandemic, 26.6 billion shillings has been allocated towards the post-COVID-19 economic stimulus program at a time recovery is pegged on health.
Even in countries where vaccinations have been done, the UK, Israel, even the US today, where a big proportion of the population has already been vaccinated, not once but even twice, the economies are starting to bounce back. So this virus is not going away, and we're going to have to do everything we can to prevent it. So, the vaccination program is going to be critical for the rest of this year, I think.
1.8 trillion shillings is going towards the executive, 37 billion shillings to Parliament and 17 billion shillings to Judiciary, amidst concerns over government spending.
The government has talked severally, even the President has said, we will move to austerity measures. The reality is that we haven't. We're still spending more than we earn, and to bridge the gap, we're borrowing more. So there's wages, there's salaries, there's development, there's all sorts of things. Are we spending too much? Point one. Point two, how much of that is actually getting wasted? And by wasted, I mean there's just no accounting for where it's gone. Which leads me on to point three, which is how much of it is disappearing in corruption-type scams.
With pressure mounting on the taxman to collect more revenue, of the projected 1.8 trillion shillings of revenue the government projects to collect, over 50% is going towards servicing debt, which stood at 7.2 trillion shillings at the close of 2020.
Just got to watch for that. We've got to bring our expenditure down. I often give the analogy, just look at your own home. You look at your revenue, what your income is, and then you decide what you're going to spend. Here, the government is deciding what they want to spend and then trying to match the revenue to it. And when the economy is not at full potential, that's going to be very difficult to achieve.
Amendments have also been proposed in the Financial Bill 2021 on the Tax Procedure Act, Excise Duty Act, the VAT Act, the Miscellaneous Fees and Levies Act, as well as the Capital Markets Act, the Central Depositories Act, the Kenya Revenue Authority Act, the Insurance Act, and the Retirement Benefits Act to facilitate realization of the budget proposals. Under the Tax Procedures Amendment, Treasury is seeking to get powers to regulate VAT without involving Parliament.
That one is a concern to me because I've seen in the past Treasury and the KRA use regulations to try and override what is in the law. And that is not legally correct because the law is the overriding factor that you have to comply with. The regulations are only designed to make it easier to apply the law and to apply the law and give guidance on the procedures that will be followed. So That is why I think it went through Parliament for approval. I don't know whether MPs will accept this. After all, it is something that's been taken away from them.
Treasury is proposing to introduce VAT exemptions on ventilators, decongestants and supplements in order to boost the health sector by lowering costs. Geothermal, oil and mining, solar and wind energy generation supplies have also been put on the list of exempt items.
VAT was never performing the way it should. It still has some way to go, but and I'm not happy that when the new VAT Act came in, we had about 30 exempt items. If you look at the list today, it's about 110, 120, something like that. So we're back into that cycle where in a few years' time, we're going to say too many exempt items. Now, the government is making, Treasury is making inroads into saying these exemptions are not needed, let's take them out.